Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be part 7 of the trilogy I did called I've Never Had a Relationship. And I thought, yeah, we need to do part 7 because this is the bread and butter of my channel. And I thought I'd talk about why men do not like dating women that have not had a relationship. And this came up for me because I know I've sinned. I've sinned and I started watching Love is Blind UK, and I know I'm a terrible person. It's just something easy to watch because at the moment I'm watching One Tree Hill and I got a bit bored of One Tree Hill, so I thought, okay, we'll just watch this while I'm literally eating my dinner. And I thought, yeah, we'll watch Love is Blind. And I'm only about 3 episodes in, so I don't really know what's gone on, but a couple of observations. First one, why is everyone from Essex? Cockney, wide boy from Essex. Could they not go anywhere else within the British Isles? I do not know. And number 2, I thought I'd talk about, I don't even know this girl's name, but the girl that has vitiligo and has never had a relationship. And then as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, it's like looking in a mirror, isn't it? It's just looking in a mirror. And everything she talked about, obviously it resonated quite deeply with me. So I thought I'd talk about why men do not like dating someone that has not had a relationship. I kind of wanted her story to talk to more people because I thought for me, I wanted to know how other men would react to that bit of news, but on the whole, we weren't shown that, which was really disappointing. Spoiler alert, she does pick someone and she does get engaged. Don't even go there, to someone. Okay, let's get into it. So, I think the first reason I've obviously found in my experience, and if you're new to this video, I haven't had a relationship before, so I absolutely know what I'm talking about. I've had this conversation with men over and over again and again. I don't know how many times, I dread to think. I think the first reason they don't like dating someone that hasn't had a relationship is because they don't want to get attached to you. They're scared at first of getting attached to you and being the bad guy. No man wants to be the bad guy that is the first person that you date and breaks your heart. No guy wants to do that. And I think for a lot of guys, they just literally do not want to be the bad guy. They know you're going to get attached to them pretty quick because you've obviously never had that feeling before. If you've never had that feeling of being loved before, the first person you meet or the first person you get deeply attached to, you're going to feel that first love feeling. And for a lot of men, say if they're maybe 35 years old, they don't want to be with someone that feels those feelings that intensely. And then if they realise they don't want to be with you, they don't want to pull back. They don't want to pull back from that and feel like, oh, I'm just the bad guy. I'm such a bad guy. I think this is a bit controversial, but I think sadly for a lot of men, I still feel a lot of them need to be tricked into a relationship. I feel like it's not the default setting for a lot of men. I feel like for a lot of men, they still want to not settle. And I feel like you almost have to trick them, unfortunately. And if you've never had a relationship, they do not want to be that first person. The guy in the pod was just concerned that she hadn't done things before, like she hadn't done the meet the parents. In some ways, if you haven't had a partner and you haven't gone through the trials that partners go through, such as, I don't know, losing a job or a really bad circumstance, you haven't been with someone, and men kind of get worried that you won't know what to do, which I find really strange. But I can only talk from personal experience, and I feel that men just do not want to be that first person. I think obviously it's young. Obviously, if you're younger, it's completely different. But I think as you get older, I've definitely found there's a reticence for men to be your first partner. And a lot of this as well, I think, is because point number 2, a lot of men do not want to be with a woman that is not sexually experienced. And brace yourselves, I know what the comments are going to say. I always get on every video that I kind of talk about this, is that people will bring up the lock and the key analogy, they'll bring up the used car metaphors. So if I see that in the comments, I just ignore it now. I have found that if you haven't had a relationship men do not want to date you because you haven't that sexual experience. And obviously, the majority of people gain sexual experience within a relationship. And if you haven't had a relationship, you are stunted sexually. And what I have found is that a lot of men do not want to put in the effort with me. They see it as an effort being with someone that isn't sexually experienced. They almost want to hit the ground running with someone. They don't want that kind of training wheel stage. And I've definitely found when I've been dating that men are just reticent to that. They don't want to. I think it's sadly because a lot of men are commitment phobic and they just don't want to put in the effort with women. Remember, a lot of men are kind of taught this ideology of not investing in women, not putting time in women, not even getting close to women. For a lot of men, they generally do not want to get close to women for whatever reason. It could be due to their childhood, it could be due to ideologies they've been pumped. But for a lot of men, they do not want to get close to a woman. So if they are propositioned with someone that is sexually inexperienced, they're going to pull back. They're going to pull back and think, oh, I don't want to do that. That means I have to get close to someone. That means I have to let my guard down with someone. And that means I have to get really intimate with someone. Because obviously, if you're with someone that isn't sexually experienced, then you're going to have to show real intimacy to that person. And for a lot of men, I found they just don't want to get involved, they just don't care, and it's not for them. And it's probably because primarily the main tool of me meeting people has been on a dating app, and we know that dating apps are primarily used for hookup culture, and the men on dating apps are not invested in finding the one, even though they say they want to find the one as the bait to hook you in. But I've generally found that men don't want to get close to me. They don't want to be intimate with me. They want someone to just hit the ground running. They just want someone that is fully developed relationship wise, someone that's had a few relationships under their belt. And I think it's because they know that I will get attached. It is kind of a turn off for a man if they are confronted with a woman and they know the woman will get attached. Like I said, I feel like for a lot of men, I feel like they have to be tricked into a relationship. It's not their default setting. If you're vulnerable with a man and you say, look, I've never had a relationship, I've only been met with negativity when I've been vulnerable with men doing that. I haven't been met with positive experiences. It's always been a no. And I think that's why. I think it's because men want someone sexually experienced. On the other hand, they don't want someone that is too sexually experienced because then other men will judge them for sleeping with someone that is too, what was the word in Girls? I can't remember the word in Girls. Was it all adventurous girls? That's something like that. Remember when they were talking about getting HPV and they were saying all adventurous girls? I can't remember the exact wording. But I think there's just a general reticence from men to want to get involved with someone that hasn't had a relationship before or isn't sexually experienced. At the end of the day, if men want to go around and sleep with a lot of women, it's up to them. Like, people can do what they want at the end of the day. But that's sadly what I found. And that's what I found why men don't really want someone that hasn't had a relationship before. Also, point 3 is that men care deeply about what other men think. And if you are viewed as someone that hasn't been chosen by a man, that hasn't been claimed by multiple men, that I think sadly on some level men do not want you. You know, in rap music, the rappers tend to sleep with the same woman and like pass her around. Even in sport to some extent, like the top athletes tend to have like the same woman and pass her around. I think it's because generally men care about the woman, if the woman is desirable, if she has been desired by other high value men, then she is more attractive to other men. I think men sadly see value in a woman if other high value men have picked her and had relationships with her. So if a man looks at a woman and he knows that she's had a couple of relationships with men, he's more likely to see, oh, if other men picked her, then she has value. Therefore, I see value in her because she's been picked by other men. I genuinely believe if you haven't had a relationship, men go to that place in their head where they think she has no value. She has no value because she hasn't been picked by other men. Why do not other men like her? There must be something wrong with her. And I think the lady in Love is Blind is obviously her whole life, she's obviously seen her vitiligo as the issue. This is the issue, why I haven't met anyone. In the similar way for me, I've always been like, it's my weight. My weight has been why I've never met anyone. And then I will internalize that. And I think she's probably felt this is why I've never met anyone, where it's probably just the circumstances she's been in that she just hasn't met anyone. But for this woman, she will have internalized her vitiligo as the source of why she has not met anyone and why she's not good enough. And I generally believe, sadly, men see value in if a woman has been picked by other men, if she's had a series of short-term relationships. And then also, I don't know the blonde, I don't know the blonde-haired lady in Love is Blind, but the one with the long blonde hair, and she'd had a 7-year relationship. And you could just tell she is the type of woman that men will love. She's obviously blonde, thin, attractive, and only had one long-term relationship for 7 years. So for all the men online were thinking like, oh my God, she's amazing. She's only slept with one man. What a queen. What a queen. She's only been with one man. And that is sadly the type of woman that men will be programmed to pick. This person that has had one sexual partner, I'm just presuming, I'm just projecting, I don't know. But for argument's sake, she's had one sexual partner, one relationship, and then picked by someone else. Whereas if you haven't had a relationship, men will reflect badly on that. They'll think, why haven't you had a relationship? There must be something wrong. There must be something wrong with you as an individual for you not to have a relationship. And I spoke about that in my video. I told my story and no one believed it because I started reading the comments, and in the end I thought I'm just not going to read the comments because it just gets into my head too much. And I explained in that video the kind of comments that I was getting when I told my story about never having a relationship. Basically that it was my fault, that my singleness was a choice. And you have to think, I'm just living in a small town and did an office job. It's not like I'm living in a big city and I have a job where I have access to men every day. I mean, half the point of me being online was to meet new people, to meet new men, because I knew in my town and my current social circle that there were not enough men. There were not enough men for me to realistically date. And I still think that men judge you for it. They judge you for it so much, and this is why I just don't really tell people now. In a way, I'm glad because now I can talk about it and I don't cry. Whereas for so many years, I held so much shame about it that even talking to a boy about it, even if I would get vulnerable with someone and I would try and explain it, I would just cry because I felt so much shame about it. But now I'm it's getting easier, and I'm kind of getting to the stage where I can talk about it and not cry, which I feel is helpful if I can just talk about it and not cry. But I generally feel that men definitely see value in someone if they've been picked by other men of value, which is just crazy. But I think it's because men on the whole care what men think about them than what women think about them. And I think that's because the patriarchy affects men as well as women. I don't on the whole think that men realise how much it affects them. I think we've always been told that it only affects women, but it affects men as well, and it affects how men behave around other men and how men will make decisions based on how they are perceived by other men and the group at large. Maybe we'll touch on slightly how there was a fear from one of the participants in Love is Blind that the lady hadn't gone through social situations, which I just think it's absolutely crazy. I think at the end of the day, I've lived with people before. Yeah, it's this fear that you've never lived with someone before. You've never, and it's like, well, I have obviously lived with people before. I lived with my family when I was younger. I've lived with adults while I was at university. I obviously understand the nuances of living with people and how it's not the same as living on your own. I personally, maybe people have had different experiences in the comments, and I generally feel that it's completely different telling someone when you're younger that you've never had a relationship. Once you get older, once you start to get into your like mid 30s and you're telling a man that you've never had a relationship, it does not go down well. People lean into judgments, they lean into preconceived notions about why you must have some kind of medical issue that makes you unattractive or unable to have sex. You must have some kind of psychological issue. You must have some kind of psychiatric issue. I think if I do get close to someone and tell them, the first question is always why. When I tell people if I am dating, it's always why is the first question. And then the second question is always, are you a virgin? It always goes in that order. They'll say, why have you never had a relationship? Rather than what's wrong with you. But the why has been questioned as what's wrong with you, really. So they say, why? And then the second one is, are you a virgin? And then the third question is always, are you waiting for marriage? I've had this conversation hundreds of times. There is no variation on the questions for men. It's always the same. It's always, why have you never had a relationship? Are you a virgin? And then it's, are you waiting for marriage? Thanks for watching, everyone. Love you. Bye.